What's going on, everyone? My name is Jake. This is where I talk capes. It is currently 5:16 on the 11th of July. I have seen Superman twice. I saw it at 20 past 10 this morning, and then I went at the 10 to 2 screening again, back to back and I just have some thoughts. This is going to be a very quick, spoiler-free video. I'm going to talk about some things that I loved. I don't really have anything I didn't particularly like about this film. I'm going to get that out of the way early. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I just want to come on here and talk about this. I'm going to go see it again, and then we'll have a spoiler discussion over the next week. Let's just crack on with it. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I think it's the best live-action Superman movie, and admittedly, I only think there was one good live-action Superman movie before this, and that's, of course, Superman 78. I think the Donner cut is fine. Superman 2 is okay as well. 3 and A Quest for Peace are just a mess. I don't think Superman Returns is that good. I see where they're going, but I don't think it's that great. I think Man of Steel is a bad Superman movie. I think it's a good movie about an original character, but it's not a Superman movie, and for that reason I hate it. I think if you just swap everything out and he's not Clark and it's not Superman and it's not, Zod and it's not Metropolis, then that's fine, because nothing about that character is Superman. But this here, 2025 Superman by James Gunn starring David Corenswet, is now, in my opinion, and I understand recency bias is probably beating my ass, but I went to go see it twice just to make sure I felt the same upon a rewatch, and I absolutely did. This is now, to me, the definitive Superman movie. This is the definitive live-action Superman movie, without question. A few things I really liked here. First of all, is just the tone. I loved how unashamed this is to be Superman. Superman should be big and fun and campy and colourful and bright and vibrant, and it's all of these things, and I absolutely adore that. And I knew we were going to get that with James Gunn. James Gunn has never really wanted to shy away from the comic bookiness. I guess he's never really one to shy away from the silliness, and he always kind of leans in heavy into what makes these characters special in terms of the comic books, and what makes people like me love reading these characters. And he made me care about characters like fucking Javelin and for a slight moment the Detachable Kid, and and Bloodsport and Peacemaker, and he understands what makes these characters special, and the fact that he's able to take these characters from such different places. Like Peacemaker is completely different to this, is completely different to Guardians 3, is completely different to Guardians 1, is completely different to the Suicide Squad in terms of maybe not too much tone, but in terms of how these characters are presented and portrayed, and he completely understands how these characters would interact with each other and how they would relate to each other and how they would present and live in the real world. But one thing as well I really appreciate about this is this isn't a real world take. I would say, with essentially the exception of Burton's Batman and I guess Schumacher's Batman movies as well, every superhero movie tries to present itself as being in our world. Snyder looked at what would happen, what's a realistic take on if Superman came to Earth, and how would the people react to that, and how would the people react if the Kryptonians came after him. And obviously Nolan limited his Batman trilogy to the confines of the real world, and everything is based and grounded and soaked in reality, and Matt Reeves is the Batman, whilst it's grounded, it's in a sort of heightened version of reality, but it still kind of feels like our world, whereas the world of Superman feels like the comics come to life. It doesn't feel like a portrayal and a translation of the comics into the real world. It feels like we are being transported into the comics. It is unashamed of its source material. It's bright, it's bold, it's huge in scope, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Another thing I absolutely loved here is the characters, and not just specifically Superman, Lex, and Lois, who we will talk about in a minute, but in terms of all of the characters. This isn't an origin for anyone. The world is established. We have had metahumans, we have the Justice Gang, we have a Green Lantern that's known to the world, we have Hawkgirl, we have Mr. Terrific, we have Metamorpho, we have Superman, we have all these people that are just here, and we don't need to know their origin, because watching this movie tells us who they are, what they do, what's their purpose, why are they here. We've got the Engineer as well, another character that's a super deep cut. Metamorpho and Mr. Terrific are fairly deep cuts, Hawkgirl as well. And Guy Gardner's Green Lantern being the first Green Lantern we are introduced to is such a bold step. But this isn't an origin for anyone. We don't see the pod crash on the farm in Smallville. We don't see the experiment that led to Angie having her blood being fused with nanites to become the engineer. We don't see Guy, be chosen by the Green Lantern Corps. We are just dropped in it, and it makes sense. We don't have to ask who's this, because they're so well defined and they're so well, presented, I guess. From the moment you meet Guy Gardner, you know his deal. From the moment you meet Mr. Terrific, you know his deal. When you meet the engineer, you know her deal. The only one who's kind of a little bit maybe up in the air is Hawkgirl, but she just doesn't have loads to do here. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing out and out. I just think, I really enjoyed this movie, and I don't really see how much else you can do with Hawkgirl without kind of, hurting the pacing a little bit. But I still think she's a lot of fun, and I think Isabella Merced is fantastic in that character. But I think in terms of the metahumans that we have been introduced to so far, we don't need to see how they got these powers. We don't need to see how they got here. And this also helps us for taking the universe forward, because we have metahumans, it's established, we have the Justice Gang, we have Superman, we have the Engineer, there's been more, there will be more, get over it, who can we introduce next? And that's a major strength of this, because one of the things that I love about early Marvel, but a lot of people think is weird, is we go from billionaire with technology, and then guy who was frozen in the ice, and then also guy who had a big science experiment, and a god. And it feels a little bit weird that we're kind of dealing with that, and the world is just getting used to all this in Marvel, and there's a god, and there's an evil god, and there's a big purple guy, and all these things are just kind of happening at once and thrown in. Whereas in this universe, this is established, this is the norm, this is what's happening, let's just go with it. I think that is incredibly freeing for the ways this universe can go. I think it's an incredibly freeing position to take, because we don't need to be bogged down with lore and backstory and there's this has came here and this has given us powers and all this stuff, and yeah, we'll have backstories, and we will have the explanations of things, and we will have origin stories, definitely. But I just like the idea that when we get a Booster Gold, it's not going to feel weird and out of place. Another major thing I want to talk about here is the cast. I think everyone here plays their role to perfection. Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner is fantastic. Eddie Gathegi as Mr. Terrific is incredible. Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, as I already mentioned. And then obviously as well, Pruitt Taylor Vince was incredible as Pa Kent. It's just an incredible cast. But the main three of David Cornsweet, Rachel Brosnahan, and Nicholas Hoult were absolutely incredible. I'd go so far as to say, Rachel Brosnahan's got a long way, maybe not a long way to go, but I think probably still a bit of a way to go to unseating Margot Kidder as the definitive Lois Lane. However, Nicholas Hoult has already cemented himself, in my opinion, as the definitive Lex Luthor. He is the standout performance in this for me. He's absolutely fantastic. Everything he does is just driven by hate and spite, and he knows that he's driven by hate and spite, and that seems to anger him more and push him further into his hatred of Superman and his need to be the main character, the centre of everything, the saviour, the one above all. He needs this, and I think Nicholas Hoult plays that perfectly. And it's been said that picking someone who was down to the final two for Batman in The Batman, and down to the final three for Superman in this movie, is possibly the perfect person you could have to play Lex, because he's had to get in those headspaces, and now he has to bring himself here. And I think Nicholas Hoult is, I remember when the name was first, when it was announced, I was excited because I really like Nicholas Hoult, but in the back of my mind I was like, he doesn't really have a Lex Luthor sort of vibe in my mind. Someone like a Bradley Cooper I thought would have been really fun, or Glenn Howerton would have obviously been incredible. There's a lot of people, like I even saw Batista's name be thrown around, which I don't think would have been fantastic, but I seen the vision more than I seen Nicholas Hoult. But I love Nicholas Hoult, so I was willing to just be like, I'm going to roll with it. I trust James Gunn, I trust Nicholas Hoult, let's watch it play out. And every single time he's on screen, I cannot take my eyes off him. He is fantastic. He's far and away the standout performance of this movie for me, but that's not to take anything away from anyone else. I think Cornsweet Superman is just steeped in sincerity and vulnerability and passion and love, and it's everything I want Superman to be. One of the main arguments against Snyder, in my opinion, one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of Snyder's take on Superman, is his Superman lacks in sincerity for me. His Superman, his version of Superman, his idea of Superman is a man who sees himself as more than humans and wants to come to help humanity and sees humanity as inferior and wants to protect and has this burden of being a protector because he sees himself as above humans because he is Superman. Whereas Clarence Sweat's Superman, he is not Kryptonian, he is human. He may be able to fly, he may be able to, he may have heat vision and freeze breath and super strength and all of these things, but at the end of the day, he's just a boy who was raised by two good parents on a farm in Kansas. And there's an incredible speech at the end of the film where he just outlines all that. And that's what I love about this version of Superman. He doesn't see himself as better than us. He is one of us, and that's why he protects. He doesn't protect out of some God complex and some feeling that he is above it and he has the burden to protect. He wants to protect because he is human, and I think it's an incredible performance from him as well. And again, Rachel Brosnahan is perfect. She's absolutely perfect as Lois Lane. The three of them were incredible. A few more wee things just very quickly that I absolutely adored. I love the flying. I fucking love the flying. I think this is the best flight has ever looked in a superhero movie. I just love how kinetic it feels. I love that it sometimes feels like the camera is struggling to keep up with him, or with Ultraman, or with the Engineer, or with even the Green Lantern and the Hawkgirl and stuff. I love how kinetic and always in motion the flying feels, and I mentioned that in some of my earlier videos about Superman before it came out. I think it's the best flying has ever looked in a superhero movie, the same way the Eternals has the best representation of super speed. I just love it. I just love that it's always in motion and it feels so so fast and quick, but also so agile and so nimble, and also so powerful and regal. It's all of these things, and I think it's incredible. I only really have two things that I wanted, and I don't necessarily want to say they're like marks against the movie, because I think this is a fucking perfect movie. I think this is the perfect Superman movie. This is now, like I say, the definitive take on Superman in my mind, and as far as live action goes, in terms of in the comics, obviously you've got All Star, and you've got so many incredible writers that wrote for Superman. In fact, really, in my head, the definitive Superman is Superman Smash the Clan Superman. But in terms of live action Superman, this is now for me what I'm picturing as the definitive take going forward. So I don't necessarily want to say these points are bad and these are marks against it. These are just some things I would have liked, and it's literally only two things. I would have loved a little bit more interaction with Superman and the kids of Metropolis. Now there is a good bit, but in particular I would have loved co-costume. Thanks, my mum made it for me. Every time that is said in TV or comics or animated or anything, anytime I see a kid tell Superman they like his costume and he says, "Thanks, my mum made it for me," I even talking about it, I'm smiling. I light up. So I would have liked to see just a little bit more interaction with him and the children of Metropolis and the children of Bravia as well. However, that's just a little personal thing. And then this last one, I guess, is minor spoilers. I just don't think we spend enough time with Clark. A good 85% of his screen time is as Superman. And then there's a little bit in there as well where he's being Clark, but he's with Lois, and it's after Lois has found out. And I know it's I guess a bit of a spoiler, but we know from the trailer when she's fucking interviewing him. So if you're going to come in here and be like, "Oh, spoilers," it was in the trailer, and I've not said much more than that. And then we only have a little bit with big suit jacket and glasses, and he's in the he's in the Daily Planet, goofing off with Perry and with Jimmy Olsen and with Steve Lombard and stuff like that. I would have liked to see a little bit more of that presentation of Clark. However, I overall, no real complaints about this movie. I thought it was absolutely spectacular. I think you should run, not walk, to the cinema to go see it. I've seen it twice on opening day. So, yeah, that's it for me for today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Superman down in the comments down below, but please, I do ask, please be respectful. This is a non-spoiler video, so we're not going to get into spoiler talk in the comments. I will have a spoilers video up soon. I'll do a solo spoilers video. I think I'm going to do a spoilers video as well with Ewan from the main stage, where we'll just talk about this incredible movie. But yeah, Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, don't forget to comment down below and let me know what you thought. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Show this to all your friends and tell them about the handsome man on the internet with the good Superman opinions. Once again, guys, my name is Jake. This is Where I Talk Capes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.